So here we have the start of the application. You can see in the top right there is a menu arrow, and in the current space there is the canvas or scene object that we will attach objects to. And then over to the right here we have our controller. So on the controller there are currently 4 primitive object shapes that you can select. You can go in, go have a good look. There's a Borg cube. Yeah, so that's in the shapes menu, which you can get to by tapping it in the real world. From there, you might want to select a shape, so tap and hold on the shape, it will select that shape. Then you might want to change the color, so let's go in, press the color, cool, our color menu has come up. You can then choose to modify that color, get some good range in there, change some of these menus, maybe pull it back down a little, and I'm happy with that forest green, it looks almost lively. Yeah, so from there you can choose to go to textures, where you can choose some different types of textures on the object. It's recommended that you choose these textures before you change the color, as choosing the texture after changing the color will reset the color. From there, you can choose to delete the object by hovering your hand over it. In this case, I don't want to. In this case, I will create the object. So hover your hand over it. It is now attached to the camera. Now, let's open up our menu. We have the select menu. So single select, select all, deselect, single, and then deselect all. Then you have a bind to camera button and a bind to scene button. So let's go over to our scene object and bind. Cool. It's now bound to the scene, not following the camera. We can move the scene as well. And then because it's still selected, we could then go bind to camera. It's back on our camera. And then bind to the world. So you can use that to move around objects, and you can also use it to move an object to a different location or just have it held on the camera. So there's the settings for selection. So at the moment it's camera and scene space, which I recommend using all the time. Going to the next menu, you now have transformations for all selected objects. Click on the arrow. You have an X and a Y, and then a Z for all your axes. Select the X, it's a little gentle at the moment, and the locals aren't quite set up right. Whoop. Oop, gotta bring that object back on screen. It's very gentle at the start. It tends to jump. So we can go into rotation. So you have these 3 rings. There's a red one, a green one, and then there's your blue one. Then you can select one of those rings on screen and then drag to rotate your object, and it will rotate on the axes of the ring. From there you can start doing some scaling. So press the blue arrows that spread out. You get like your positioning object, your X, Y, and Z. If you tap along the rod or at the end of the rod, it will go along that axis. However, if you tap where all 3 corners meet, you can scale all at once. So this is the whole object scaling equally. Cool. So from there, you may wish to select an object and then change its color. Go there. I want to confirm, it's now red. You can also choose to change textures. It now has a bumpy texture on it. And then after that, you can choose to open up your colors again and go, I didn't like red, let's go back to green. Cool. There's a bunch of other features in there, but that's unimportant. You'll find them out as you go. So there is a copy feature. Let's do a copy. So you may notice that it doesn't look like there's a copy, however one has been made. It's just in the exact same location. So a good way to avoid any confusion is to go back to your select menu and then go bind to camera, and then you can move it somewhere else. then bind that back to the scene. Cool, there's your two objects. Now let's try a deselect and a select all. So deselect will select every object, so if I go bind to camera, nothing binds to camera. If I go select all, it'll select every object, so I go bind to camera, and they're both bound to the camera now. Cool, so let's bind them to the world, deselect all objects, go next. You can then, if you tap and hold an object, it'll select it, and then we could try deleting. But in this case, let's create another object, bind that to work, camera space, bind that back to world space, and then let's select all objects, go one to the right, and let's change all their colors at once. This works with more than two objects. We've tested with up to 512 objects and it has worked. So we can go down to red, push it all the way up, tick, and they're both red. You can do the same materials. Boom, they both have the same material now. So let's close off that menu. Go one to the right, then you have your help, credits, and exit. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy and make some crazy creations.